All right. Hey, friends. So, today I wanted to make a quick video so I could talk to you about stress. So, why are you stressed and how to deal with it? So, if you're a human, you've probably felt the not so great feeling of stress. And so, this video is kind of here just to help you understand, first of all, why you are stressed. And if you want to quit being stressed, some steps you can take to help you get there. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Beth Harding. I'm a life coach and I help people connect back to their inner voice, their inner wisdom while managing their minds. All right. So, we live in like a very stressed out society. Our culture tends to be pretty stressed out. There's a lot of stress just all over the place. And I think we've become so like accustomed to it that we've really misunderstood why we have this stress in the first place. So, I want to teach a quick and easy way to first just quantify your life. And basically, in the short of it, there are only 5 things in the world: circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. And I wrote it down for you. So hopefully you can see the board. Okay, so let me explain this just in a little bit more detail so you can understand. Circumstances are just facts. Circumstances are reality. It's the things outside of us, the things we have no control over. It's just the things that happen in the world. But all of our circumstances trigger thoughts. And thoughts are just the sentences in our brain or our mind. I use those words interchangeably. But basically, thoughts are just what we make a circumstance mean. And our thoughts create all of our feelings. And feelings are just our vibrations in the body. You could also call these emotions, right? It's just a vibration that's felt in the body. Now, our feelings are never caused by circumstances. They're always caused by the thoughts in our brain. And I'll explain more in just a minute. But our feelings are what create all of our actions. And actions are just the things that we do or don't do. It's the way we behave. It's how we think about things, like whether we're just, spinning on thoughts at this point. And ultimately, all of our reactions create every result. So our results are just basically what we create based on our thinking. It's never based on our circumstances. Our results are always evidence for the thoughts that we're having. So I want to take a minute and just explain the biggest difference, which is between circumstances versus our thoughts. And so imagine, I don't know if you enjoy going on roller coasters, but let's say you and a friend are going on a roller coaster. A roller coaster would just be a circumstance, it's just a thing in the world. But one of you might absolutely love going on roller coasters, and one of you might hate going on roller coasters. So you might think, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever, and you're feeling incredibly excited, while your friend, on the other hand, is completely feeling terrified because they're thinking, I might die. This was a very bad idea. It's same circumstance, just two very different thoughts about the circumstance created a very different emotional reaction within each of their own bodies. And then you could finish out the rest of that. What actions did that produce and what result did you have? One probably had an amazing, fun experience. The other probably had a horrible, horrific experience and maybe decided not to go on the roller coaster at all, just depending on the person. So, there are no good circumstances or bad circumstances. Circumstances are just reality. It's just the math, it's the facts. We equate circumstances as good or bad based on our thoughts about it. So our thoughts are what create the positive or negative feeling, those emotions that we have. And we usually associate those feelings with our circumstance. But I want you to really take notice that it's not the circumstance that's creating how we feel. It's always our thoughts about it. Okay? I know that's kind of a lot to throw out there, but see if you can just stick with me for a minute, okay? Now, what this does not mean is that we should have only positive thoughts about circumstances or about reality. I don't prefer to ever try that personally because I, for one, don't want to have positive thoughts about certain things in life. I don't want to think positively about someone close to me dying. I don't want to think positively about abuse or other things in the world. I don't want to think positive thoughts about that. So, that's 100% not what I'm saying. I just want you to notice the difference between circumstances and our thoughts. It doesn't mean you always want to have a positive thought. Okay, so let's get back to stress for just a minute. Stress is a feeling. It's that vibration that is happening in our body, but it's caused by thoughts we are thinking, not about the circumstances. It's about what we've made those circumstances mean. So, I've noticed with my own self-coaching and as well with some of the clients that I've been coaching that stress is what I would call like a secondary emotion. It's usually, and what I mean by that is it's covering up an already negative emotion. And I've found that that emotion usually is fear. It's not always, but most of the times it's fear. And in an attempt to not feel fear, we try to morph that fear into stress. And so the way I like to describe stress is it's like fear plus pressure. And so what I mean by this is like we will quickly feel fear and then we don't want to feel it. We want to eliminate that immediately. And so in an attempt to try to control our circumstances, we will add this pressure to ourselves. So it's like a fear and the pressure put together kind of make the stress. And so the short of it is stress seems to stem from having some sort of lack of control. And so here's some bad news, I guess you could say, but also some great news. You don't have control over circumstances. You don't have control over reality or life. But the good news is you've never had control over circumstances. So even when you felt really positive and great emotion, you still didn't have control over the circumstance. So this is where we can really get into our brain and kind of its overall purpose. And I think like one of the main jobs of our brain or our mind, whichever you want to call it, is to think, to plan, to do, to gain information, but it's also to judge and to fear. And because I don't know if you've noticed, but our brains tend to do both of those things all the time. And I feel that it does this in its attempt to keep us alive. So when our brains are in judgment or fear mode, it's trying to keep us safe in some way, in the only way it really knows how. But my brain, and I'm sure maybe this is like yours as well, when it's in either of those modes, when it's in fear mode or judgment mode, I've noticed that it acts very much either like a 2-year-old, like a toddler, or like a 13-year-old. And I'll explain more about those in just a minute. So when it comes to stress, though, I want you to understand that stress is a feeling felt in your body. It's that fear plus pressure feeling. Now, each of you, depending on who you are, you will feel stress in different places of your body. Maybe you feel it in your like neck and your shoulders. Maybe you feel it in your like chest or your stomach. But stress will have a tendency to show up in some form in your body. But what is causing the stress? This is the question that is so important. And if you were listening to anything I said before, maybe you've already sort of understood, or at least caught on, that stress is caused by your thoughts. Let's let that one just sink in for a second. Stress is created from stressful thinking thoughts. So, the golden question is, well, how do we get rid of our stress? And here's, I think, one of the biggest keys. Now, a lot of people will tell you to do different things to get rid of your stress. They want you to essentially change your circumstance. Now, sometimes you can do that. And I'm all for changing circumstances when you can change circumstances. If you are in an environment that's really stressing you out, going for a nice long walk can definitely help change your thoughts so that you are no longer feeling stress. If you are a mother and you need a break from your kids and their craziness that's going on, going and taking a long hot bath, changing that circumstance can help change your thoughts. But I want you to see the key here. It's the thoughts are what changed. Now, sometimes we can change our circumstance, and that can be helpful when it's helpful. Sometimes we can't change our circumstance. Sometimes we're just given what life has given us, and we're still very stressed out. We can't make someone not die if it's their time to die. We can't make the storm not come over our house if it's coming over our house. There's certain circumstances we can't escape from. So you want to just notice, what am I thinking? And the truth is we're not ready to get rid of our stress until we fully understand why we have it in the first place. We have to become fully aware. You want to notice when you're feeling it. So you can just ask yourself, like, what am I thinking? Write it down. Here's like some of the most powerful information that has totally changed my life. I am not my thoughts. You are not your thoughts. None of us. We are the watcher of our thoughts. You are so much more than your thoughts. Your brain produces over 60,000 thoughts a day. Okay? That's a lot. Most of them we're just totally not even aware of. They're in our subconscious. We have no idea they're there. And for usually every one thought that we're actually conscious about, there's thousands that are under the surface. So, in order to detach from feeling stressed, we don't want to get rid of the stress. We want to understand why it's there in the first place. What are we thinking that's making us feel stressed? And sometimes it might even be helpful to say, what am I fearing right now? Because so many times stress is really just a cover up of fear. There's something we don't have control over, and our brain knows that, and so it's trying to manipulate us into trying to take action so that we can change something that's unchangeable. So, what you want to do when you get to this point, if you're able to separate from your thinking enough that you can see, okay, here's what I'm thinking and it's making me feel stressed, write it down, look at it, and then just say, I feel stressed because I'm thinking, and then you would just want to say what it is you're thinking. It's not because of the circumstance, it's because of this thought. And from there, you want to have compassion. Compassion, 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 okay? This is where we're going to go back to our brains being like either a 2-year-old or a 13-year-old. I feel like my brain is very much like a 2-year-old, especially when I'm fearing something. It's like if you have a young child and they're afraid of the dark and they get really, really scared and they're hiding under their covers and they're screaming because they think some monster is going to hurt them. You don't go to the child and like beat the child and say, "You're crazy, like there is nothing to be afraid of, like this is ridiculous." Like we know that that does not help the situation. It usually just perpetuates the fear. Your brain, I want you to treat your brain with the same kind of love that you would treat a child who is genuinely scared right now. Yeah, there's some things out of our control. Of course, our brain's going to be afraid. Of course, we have fear about that. Even if it's subconscious, even if we know intellectually, okay, I don't need to be afraid of this, our brain still has thoughts about it and it's afraid. It's okay. Your brain is doing this to protect you in its own way. It just doesn't know how, and that's fine. What if you can just show some compassion and love for yourself rather than get mad at yourself or beat yourself up or be like, no, get over it, like there's no reason for this? In order for the stress to actually begin to dissipate, you have to be willing to say, it's okay for it to be there. Because otherwise, we'll start getting stressed about our stress. And so, from this place, you begin to see your brain is just having thoughts. You are not those thoughts. When you're unaware of your thoughts, you're living out your thoughts. They produce a feeling stress, and you feel stressed, and it's no fun. It usually creates results that are not helpful. But if you can see your brain and begin watching your brain, watching the sentences that go by in your mind, and you can look at them with curiosity and not judgment. You could look at them with fascination. You can begin to have compassion for why you've been feeling stress. Because it's just a story. It's something your brain is believing. And it's totally okay. You're a human with a human brain. And human brains are going to create stressful thoughts. That's what they're made to do. They're made to create fear. So hating ourselves for our organ doing what it essentially is meant to do is not going to be helpful. It'll usually perpetuate the very feeling we want to get out of. So that's going to be the biggest step, is understanding why you have this stress in the first place is because of your thinking, and then having the guts and the patience to recognize that and not try to get rid of it, but just settle into it. Take a deep breath in and say, stress, like it's okay, you can be here. I know this is just because of this thought that I'm having that I'm feeling stress, and it's okay. I'm a human in the world, and I'm going to allow myself to have a stressful story. And from that place, we can then decide, once we've detached ourselves enough from the story, we begin to have leverage where we no longer even have to get rid of the stressful thought. The stressful thought will begin to go. It will lose its validation. And so, and this is like such a beautiful process, because not only have we gained awareness, we've now stepped away from the identity of a past story that we've been believing that hasn't been serving us. So, the only last thing I want to add, and this is what is so beautiful about our minds and how they work, is every result we create here, okay? it then becomes a circumstance in the world. I said that we cannot control circumstances, right? Circumstances are just reality. But how we view this reality, how we think about the reality, it will change how we feel. It'll also change how we show up, which will then make a difference in the world. So if you want the world to be less stressful, we really have to bring it back in. Does it take a little bit more work? Maybe. I've found that usually when we're so busy blaming our circumstances for stress, not much changes. We just stay in a result of more stress. So we just stay in this loop of stress and stress and stress. And so you really want to be open to the idea that there are endless possibilities for any circumstance. How you want to think about a circumstance. The possibilities are endless. The thoughts you want to think are endless. And you may decide that you want to be in fear, but really question yourself if you want to be in stress about something and if it's actually useful to you. Because a lot of times stress, it causes havoc in the body. Like even scientists have shown that stress, the damage it does on the nervous system and on just the quality of health we have is pretty potent. It's pretty powerful. So, some questions you might want to think about is who would you be without the stress? And what would someone who is not stressed think about this same circumstance? Like just make up imaginary person. Like just begin playing with your mind in the sense of like, I don't know, how might someone else think about this circumstance? What might be a more useful thought? Even if you can't believe it right now, it's good for your brain and healthy for your brain just to notice that there is more. There are other possibilities other than thinking thoughts that are creating stress for you. All right, that's all I have for you right now. It's just a quick little thing about stress. If you want to learn more, I offer life coaching. I have a new program that I'm actually walking my clients through, and it's amazing. The results are amazing, and I'll help you learn how to manage your mind so that you can follow your inner wisdom. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to just leave them in the comments. And I want all of you to know that I genuinely love you and that life loves you. So if you're stressed out, I want you to really take that in, that life. And I call life, sometimes God, life, I use those words interchangeably because it's life just feels like, I know God and life, it's so big. And so sometimes I like to use the word life because certain people, I know they have a hard time with God. They think maybe God doesn't always love them at certain times. And it's just not true. Like life just always loves you. God always loves you. And so I want to help you love life back, to enjoy this life that you have. All right, friends, I hope you have the best day. Leave your questions, and I will see you next time. Bye.